Hey guys, today we'll be answering a question that I get pretty frequently on my streams and my Twitter, and that is, what is the best legendary hand cannon? Before we start, I want to explain why the vast majority of hand cannons are not as good as the ones I'll be looking at. Those hand cannons are the Chance from Future War Cult, or other things like Venation 3, Red Hand 9, or Timur's Lash. For everything besides the Chance, it's because 1, you can't buy them, and 2, their bonuses are random when they drop. Some bonuses are better than others, and it's tough to compare those weapons when everyone can have a different version of that weapon. The reason I'll be ignoring the Chance is because of its max ammo in the chamber, which is only 6 shots. In fact, all of those weapons that I just listed have fewer shots available than the 2 guns we'll actually be looking at. The Venation has 8, Red Hand has 10, Timur's Lash has 7, and the Chance with a mere 6. The biggest issue with the hand cannon is the amount of shots available to you. The lower the amount of shots, the less efficient the gun is, and the more downtime you will have. Most hand cannons have around the same impact, and there are rarely times where you want to be firing a hand cannon as fast as possible. The hand cannons with more ammo available typically have the same amount of impact as the ones with less, so there's no real trade-off that needs to be made. This is why Thorn is getting buffed as well, only 6 shots available. Until the Chance gets a buff from only having 6 shots, it will never be able to contend, and because the other hand cannons have random bonuses, they'll never be able to compete, even if they get the best bonuses because of their max ammo in the chamber. The legendary hand cannons we'll be comparing today are the Devil You Know versus Lord High Fixer. I've leveled them both up to 300 and played with them a lot in PvE and PvP to fully test them out. The Devil You Know requires Vanguard rank 3 and costs 150 Vanguard marks, and the Lord High Fixer requires rank 3 Crucible and costs 150 Crucible marks. Note that I am reviewing the versions of these weapons that you buy because the bonuses are always the same on the ones that you buy. If you get either of these from maybe the Nightfall or an Engram, the bonuses are random. They will most likely not be the same bonuses as the ones that you buy. I strongly encourage the bought versions of these weapons for reasons you'll see soon. The Devil You Know and Lord High Fixer both fire at a rate of around 120 rounds per minute and have the same impact against all targets. The Devil has slightly better stability over its Fixer counterpart, but the Fixer has slightly better range and reload. However, what's really going to set these two apart are the bonuses. Lord High Fixer's 2 main bonuses are Rangefinder and Third Eye. Rangefinder does 2 things. It increases your range by 10% while aiming, then further increases your effective damage range by 20% while aiming, which you should always be doing with this weapon. The range stat determines how far away you can shoot your target without your damage decreasing. What Rangefinder essentially does is make sure that your weapon will be able to deal full damage more often at longer ranges. There will rarely be a time where you're not doing full damage to your target, especially in Crucible given the size of most of the maps. You'll need to be shooting from very long ranges before you see any sort of drop-off. Third Eye gives you your radar while aiming down the sights, one of the best PvP bonuses you could possibly get, if not the best. Being able to aim around corners without guessing where your target will be is a huge advantage in PvP, although not nearly as important of a bonus in PvE. Lord High Fixer also has the option of Flared Magwell, allowing for even faster reloads, another very critical bonus for PvP. The ammo upgrade takes you from 11 shots to 13 shots, which is probably the bare minimum amount of shots I'd even consider using this upgrade. The Devil You Know's bonuses are both very good, Zen Moment and Crowd Control. The stability on Devil You Know is already very good. There's not a lot of recoil, and Zen Moment only makes it better. Crowd Control is one of the better PvE bonuses you can possibly have on a weapon, giving around 15% increased damage for 3 seconds after every kill. In strikes and solo play, this bonus will be active quite often. Zen Moment increases your stability by around 12 to 13% per hit, capping out at a whopping 66% after 5 hits. While the bonus doesn't last very long, it will ensure that you'll stay on target until said target is dead. Shockingly enough, the conclusion here is that Lord High Fixer is the best legendary PvP hand cannon, and the Devil You Know is the best PvE hand cannon, and rightfully so, given how they are obtained. I originally had way more comparisons that I wanted to make, but the differences were so slight in terms of stability, range, and reload that it really just came down to the bonuses, which were very blatant in terms of which were better for certain activities. Third Eye is one of the best PvP bonuses, while stuff like Crowd Control is much more PvE focused. Well, what about Fatebringer? Fatebringer has the same rate of fire and impact as the other two weapons, with similar reload stability and range. Its bonuses are still pretty good, although the whole precision kills make the target explode bonus is situational because it all depends on other target proximities. Explosive rounds is a bonus in the second column of upgrades and is very disorienting to deal with in PvP if you're being hit by said explosive rounds. The main draw of Fatebringer though is its arc damage, with it being a primary weapon and all. If there's ever a time where you need a lot of arc damage, you're obviously going to be using Fatebringer over the other weapons. It's a fine weapon for both PvE and PvP, although I do think that the Devil You Know is maybe a tiny bit better for PvE, and Lord High Fixer a tiny bit better for PvP. Like if Fatebringer is a 9 out of 10, then the others are like a 9.1 or 9.2 out of 10. It's close. If you're in the raid itself and have the Oracle Disruptor bonus, and you're doing a part of an encounter that involves killing oracles, then obviously it's the best choice. However, if you're able to get Fatebringer without exploiting hard mode Templar, you probably already know what you're doing. What about if we compare them to current exotic hand cannons? Unfortunately, I still do not have the last word, so I can't make great comparisons, but given that you can fire the last word so quickly, it's one of the fastest killing weapons in the game in PvP. It's just a very unique weapon in terms of use. It's a hip-firing, high rate of fire hand cannon. There aren't many weapons that you want to fire from the hip. The last word ultimately depends on how good of a hip-firing shot you are. As for Thorn, I've spoke about Thorn in a past video, which I'll link at the end of this video, but basically, it only has 6 shots and the reload time is pathetically slow. The buffs given to Thorn will ultimately decide if Thorn becomes better. However, Hawkmoon reigns supreme in the PvE hand cannon category, and versus the last word in PvP, you can make arguments for which is better. In PvP, Hawkmoon is insanely good. The amount of 2-shot kills I get with Hawkmoon's random bonus damage is much higher than you'd think, and in PvE it performs about the same as Devil You Know but has slightly higher damage thanks to aggressive ballistics, plus has an extra shot available. The Devil You Know is still a very close second to Hawkmoon in the PvE category, and I would say it's the best PvE hand cannon period if you don't have access to Hawkmoon. The reason I don't think I'd like the last word in PvE is because it only has 8 shots available, and PvE is more about making every single shot count, at least with a hand cannon, and not about throwing as many bullets as you can at a target. As for what upgrades you should be taking on each of these weapons, for the Devil You Know, I think True Sight IS for your scope is the best, and either Send It or Field Scout for PvE, and Single Point Sling for PvP. For True Sight, having that extra bit of stickiness with the target acquisition is really nice for drag scoping onto targets, and Send It isn't the best, but the other bonuses are not as amazing. Field Scout boosts your ammo from 12 to 13, whoop-de-doo, although it does boost your maximum ammo capacity from 81 to 117, which is really nice for PvE play, and Single Point Sling is more of a PvP talent, working well with something like the Icebreaker. Send It is more of the PvE talent, but it definitely has utility in PvP as well. For Lord High Fixer in PvP, you'll want to roll with Sure Shot IS and Flared Magwell. Sure Shot gives you that extra stickiness for locking onto targets, and Flared Magwell drops the time it takes to reload from around 3 seconds to 2.66 seconds, which isn't the biggest of changes, but every millisecond counts in PvP. If you're using it in PvE, you should probably switch Magwell for Field Scout. If you don't have the time to grind out all of those marks for both weapons and want to make a focused effort on getting one of them, I would go with the Devil You Know. Most players have adapted to not having the radar in PvP while aiming, and the range issue is much less of a problem than you might think, given that all the maps are pretty compact. I've really only had damage drop off on maps like First Light and Bastion for obvious reasons. Zen Moment will always be useful, and Crowd Control, while not as useful in PvP, can give you a little bit more damage to maybe get a kill that you might normally not have gotten if you happen to be fighting 2v1, compared to having Third Eye in PvE, which really isn't that useful, and Rangefinder, which is not as useful as the Devil You Know bonuses. Hand cannons are very fun weapons, but they've definitely seen worse days in the past, namely in the beta, where they were considered an absolute joke. Thankfully, Bungie saw that they were indeed terrible and gave them some buffs, mainly in the ammo department, which was definitely the main issue. The hand cannon is definitely my favorite primary weapon, with Hawkmoon being my main weapon of choice, at least right now. They are the highest risk, highest reward weapon in the game with regards to both PvE and PvP. Non-crits in PvE are almost a waste of ammo, and missing even one shot in a PvP engagement can mean certain death. However, if you can tame their immense power, you will be rewarded with beastly efficiency in PvE and leaving players in PvP saying, "What the hell was that?" This 3D printed hand cannon is the Duke Mark 44, featured a very long time ago on the Destiny drawing board. This video was brought to you in part by My Mini Factory. I want to thank the guys over at My Mini Factory for sending me this beast of a hand cannon. It's super awesome. It's the size of my head. You see how big these things are. That's why you gotta hold on to them with two hands in game. You can find the 3D printer schematics in the description for free or on their website, myminifactory.com, not only for this weapon, but for the Conduit F3 and also the Thunderlord heavy machine gun, which was featured somewhat recently by Bungie. I'll put a picture on the screen here, along with some other Destiny-related products. For those of you who might be immersed in the 3D printing world, you can join myminifactory.com either as a printer or as a designer. You can also buy from a selection of products if you have the files yourselves, the 3D files, and want something printed, and you can request a print directly from them. But that's going to do it for me, everyone. Hope that helps you guys out. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. God, this thing's so even drills the thing. God, it's sweet.